So strap in and get ready.
The leaders in AFL SuperCoach are incoming, helping you win your leagues and climb up the rankings.
You're now listening to the Insight AFL Show with your hosts, Big Horse and Skitty.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Inside AFL Show. I'm your host, The Horse, and with me today we've got a couple of very special guests. To kick us off, our right-hand man, Hurls, after experiencing some computer difficulties this morning, is back with us. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. Back from gather round and the computer decided not to work this morning, but that's okay. We're back. We're ready to go. I'm looking forward to this one because it's about draft, which is a bit different. I'm not a draft expert by any stretch, so looking to learn something and also throw in an opinion or two along the way, as I always will.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Before we continue on to our special guest, in 25 words or less, how was gather round?
Oh, fantastic. That's one word. If you've never done it, go and do it.
Yep.
It's something that, you know, when you watch footy in Melbourne, you get multiple games a weekend, but this is done really well because of all the other stuff that goes on around Rundle Mall and all the activation zones and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, do it if you haven't done it. Absolutely, highly recommend.
Yeah, beautiful. And our next guest, ladies and gentlemen, so he's on the shelf a little bit right now because he's broken his foot and he's only not long, couple of days removed from some surgery, but a pretty impressive CV, Hurls, as you would have heard in the pre-show when we were chatting all things footy. So this guest that we have on that's going to become a staple within the Insight community, talking all things SuperCoach Draft, played Vic Country under 16s and was part of the Vic Country under 18 squad. He was the captain of the Bendigo Pioneers back in his day and captained the likes of Brodie Kemp, Thompson Dowell and others. He was part of the SNVFL squad during COVID, which would have been a bloody hard time for all those involved in professional sports around that time. He's had the pleasure of sharing the field with the likes of Caleb Sarong, Hayden Young, and many other superstars in the AFL in today's day and age. James Shishka, welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks for having me, gentlemen. It's a pleasure, as always. If you've had Train on the show, I'm sure I can't do as bad of a job as that. So, cheers for having me.
No, that's all right, mate. So here we're going to be talking about SuperCoach Draft, which is an element of SuperCoach that you enjoy probably the most when we're talking between the Classic and the Draft.
Yeah, I was obviously having a chat to you the other day just in regards to it all, and the difference between a draft and a classic side, obviously having completely different people to whoever you're playing, rather than sitting there hoping that your 8 players that you have different in your classic mode are going to get you over the line. So I like the aspect to it of that everyone sits around, has a beer on draft day and drafts a completely different side to one another, and then matchups are always head to head, knowing you don't know what's going to happen. So like I said to you the other day, 100% would rather a draft league than a classic league. I just think it changes things up a bit, and trades make things interesting as well. So
it definitely does, doesn't it? It sort of it makes it a little more interesting. Like we talk about, we've got a couple of shows that we do each week about your trade in targets, your trade out people that have got good runs coming out, fallen primos, all that sort of jazz. But in draft, cash doesn't matter. It's all about strategy, runs, who's playing where, roles, and it just adds another element to the game, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the start of the year, you probably got to look a fair bit into it, like in regards to who you're playing, like in the likes of like who you're going to be drafting for how buys work and that sort of stuff, because in your draft leagues, you don't really get anyone cancelled out in those early buys. So drafting those Collingwood players and that, you're going to be losing, especially like I made the mistake of picking Darcy Cameron and Nick Dacos together. At times it can nearly cost you a round, and where I'm sitting on the ladder at the minute, it's probably not the best situation to be in. So,
No.
But yeah, it's definitely a lot more strategy to it, I believe, as well. Obviously, the break evens don't matter and the cash doesn't matter, but making trades to make your side better and everything like that, where people don't have who you have, it's a lot more interesting to me. So,
yeah, 100%. If you've got any questions, ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We are live to get you through your hump day at work, whether you're driving around, whether you're stuck in an office. We're here to chew the fat. not just about AFL Draft, but AFL SuperCoach. If you've got some questions about that as well, we're happy to address them while we are live to help you get through your working day. But before we continue on, our show is sponsored by Draft Stars, Australia's #1 site for daily fantasy sport. Download the Draft Stars app right now to compete against other sports fans across Australia and New Zealand for huge prize pools. There is no season-long commitment and new contests to enjoy every day. There is nothing like the thrill of Draft Stars. So sign up to Australia's leaders in DFS. Use a link which will be in our description at the end of the show. It is the best way to show support to us. Remember, this is not fantasy. This is Draft Stars. So we're going to kick it off, Shishka, as you're already getting a bit of love in the chat, mate. We're going to discuss our SuperCoach Premier League, which is into our 10th season. So you're not tracking so well this year, as you just mentioned. How have you structured your team? So what I'll do is I've got my team up at the moment, which is all good, but we'll go to yours. I've got to scroll all the way down the bottom to find yours. 0-5 after winning the flag last year. Can you make it back?
I'm only 3 games behind third, so it's probably a matter of getting over the line against you this week. But I was sort of unlucky the first 2 rounds. I lost by 7 and 17 points to Skeeny and someone else. And I've had to make a few changes, and then I traded. So obviously my first pick was Dacos, and I made quite a substantial change for him where I picked up Salem, Saligo and Caldwell all for just Dacos. So I've made the mid stronger, even though Caldwell's out for another couple of weeks. I had Chalor sitting on the bench, and I thought I probably needed a bit more stability in that midfield with sort of Tom Atkins, and I had Ollie Wines, who I've just traded today. They weren't the really big scorers. And so then I've got, those 3 or 2 boys with Saligo and probably Atkins will be running the mids. And then I think I've got, in all fairness, pretty solid forward and back line. It's just a matter of that each week I can't seem to be putting 2 and 2 together to get the win. So
so people will see, well, for those that are listening to us on audio, won't be able to see, but those watching us on YouTube, you've got Alex Taru in your flex. So for those that are playing SuperCoach Classic will think, why have you got a non-player that's injured there? But you've got him and your 4 injured players there because you wanted to take Kerno's 98. Is that right?
Yeah, so I had Chuka on the weekend, and I was pretty much well done because Gawn had 150 on the Saturday night. So I didn't really want to risk taking Blake Hardwick. I had him in my flex. I didn't really want to risk taking his score, which I think he ended up with the 26 anyway. So I traded him out and just traded in Taru, who wasn't playing, to take, and traded in Goldstein as well to take Charlie's 98. So, just a bit of it just means that no one else on the bench is playing. It's going to get a lower score. So I took the 98 and traded out Josh Battle, who was only averaging 70 anyway. So didn't do anything I still lost by 150 points, but I've made a few changes now. So the team's a bit more updated where I've now got Matt Roberts in for Ollie Wines. I wavered Joel Jeffrey into the team as well. I feel like he's got a pretty good role at Gold Coast across halfback. And then I bought in Cal Ward as well, just as a mid option to throw through that flex too, just because he's he has the ability to score your 90s, 100s too. So.
He does. Yeah. As you can see here, it is quite a good team with Zorko, Salem, Vlastuin, Wines, Saligo, the Slug, Blickstabs, Atkins, Cameron, Tracy, Bailey, Mr. King, and then the names that you brought up before. So looking very nice. I've got a question here that's been sent to us directly. J-Cat, who kicked more goals last year, you or your missus?
I wouldn't say what I would normally say to her, but my partner. I think she kicked twice as many goals as me last year. So I think she finished on 94.
Really?
And then I had 47 or 48. So
who does she play for, mate?
She doesn't play. She's not playing this year, but she plays for Golden Square normally. So
so fresh off the back of kicking 96 in a year, she's decided to take the year off.
Yeah, she just doesn't want to play with all the women. She reckons they're too much drama. And I said, well, I've got to put up with you every day. So, but anyway, what it's
Unreal.
like. So,
Unreal.
That'll be the last we hear of that for today.
Yeah, I reckon that before we do move on from that, that's come from Sammy Baker, and your missus has probably kicked more goals in the season than what he has in his career. So we'll just throw that one out there.
Absolutely.
So this week, Hurls, we'll get back to my team, and we're going to go into we're going to trade out Elliot Yeo to see who's on the waiver wire this week. Which teams do you see having a really good run this week, mate? Well, not this week, sorry, but for the next month. And I guess it'd be highlighted by Melbourne, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Melbourne have got a good run coming up. I think they got maybe West Coast and Richmond, is it, in the next two after this one?
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't get much better than that. So they'd be a team for sure. Just back on the discussion we just had. I love that. Like, I'm new to draft, and one of the things that I've struggled with as a first-time draft player is how do you get interest happening, and like listening to all those moves you're making, like even without trading, just using the wire to get a captain's score or a bench score and all that. It's really interesting. So hopefully, I'm learning along as we go. So thanks for that. I hope the people at home who are probably new like me also are listening, thinking, gee, you don't have to wait to do some mega trade and hope some other team coach is in the same boat as you. You can be trying to influence your own team along the way as well.
Yeah. Spot on. G'day, Jono. He's asking about Jasper Fletcher as a draft option. So, having played the level of footy that you've played, Shishka, I'd say that he's got a fairly friendly role when we're talking about that running half back alongside Zorko there at Brisbane. And he doesn't want to talk to us, so that's all right. He might be lagging a little bit.
Sorry. Jasper Fletcher, he's been moved to. I was talking to Foxy this morning about him. He tried to, it might have been Foxy or someone. No, it wasn't. It was someone else was trying to trade me him in the SBL league because they were wanting Saligo. But look, Jasper Fletcher's not a bad player in my books. I don't know what's he averaging this year. I have to look him up. It's about 79, I think it was he was averaging.
Yeah, we can look it up. Yeah. I still think he's probably 1 year away from being relevant.
Yeah, he's very young too still, isn't he? He's only about 21 or 22.
I think he's 21 or 22, yeah. Yeah.
Brisbane are also about to come into a bit more of a tricky run for those designated kickers. So they had the really great dream start.
Yeah.
Not to say that him and blokes like Zorko won't still go okay, but just on last year's numbers, it's getting a bit red in the next month, whereas it was real green right up to round 8 or so.
Yeah, I reckon he also will probably get a bit of that halfback role taken off by Keaton Coleman because he's probably not far away either, I don't reckon.
Yeah, Keaton Coleman is only a couple of weeks away, isn't he?
And
we saw last year when Brisbane were close to full strength, he was a wingman, wasn't he, Fletcher? So we'll have to see what they do there. But as we make our way through the players in our waiver pool anyway, we see Blake Hardwick's picked in 41% of teams. Not so sure about that because he can spud, like he's got 100 upside, but he can spud it up like last week, scoring a 76. If we go to the averages, I wouldn't worry too much about Corey Durden at the top because they're not going to be playing West Coast each week. Jack Gunston, he's been a flash in the pan a couple of times. He's not going to score your 93s each week.
Just on that though, Horse, can I ask a question about Durden? Like, and you're both draft players. When you're thinking about who you're picking up, do you look at someone who you think is going to go well in 3 or 4 weeks? Or do you go, all right, Durden's still got North this week. I'll pick him up for 1 and then get rid of him. Like, what's the thinking and the strategy around how you guys tackle the waiver or the free agents?
I'll let you go with that, Shishka.
Yeah, I typically look at the role they play. So Hardwick's been a bit of I picked him up to play him this week as the flex, but obviously traded him out due to Charlie actually scoring decently for once this year. But you sort of look at the role that they play. Like I've tried trading with a Horse this year in regards to like a 2-for-2 swap, and he didn't want to take me tall forwards, and like understandably, I've only taken the tall forwards. Like I've got Tracy and King and Kerno because they're volume goal kickers, but you're probably looking for those people who are going to have high amounts of touches and have that role where they can either play like a half-back role or a mid-role but sort of sneak under the radar. It can be difficult at times to pick the right people, but you do look into who they're playing, who they're going to be playing on, where they're going to be tagged, that sort of stuff. But not many people who aren't picked up in the league are going to be getting tagged, I don't reckon. So, it's a bit of a difficult one, but you look into multiple different things, how their form has been, like over the last 2 to 3 weeks I typically look at. So Darcy Fogarty's still sitting in the waivers and he's averaging 75, but do you take a risk on him dropping a 20 bomb for you like he could potentially? It's all a guessing game sort of thing. So
yep. So we'll go back to the percentages of leagues that we're talking about earlier and averages. Harvey Thomas is an interesting one, but you're not the ones that I try and steer clear of. Further to your question, are small forwards, hurls, and tall forwards, and key backs. So they're the three that I try and stay away from. As you'll see through my team, I've got I've got my ruck, who's now a ruck forward, but then Whitfield's a running defender. I picked up Battle from you, actually. I picked him up off free agency the other day. Perryman, probably look to move him on at some stage after he has a spike score. But then you got Daniel, who's a using halfback, Marich, who's in the similar role to Caleb Daniel, Lipinski, who can either go 120 or 70. It's just depending on how he feels on the day. Boak is an older bloke, but still does his role. The only real key forward I've got is Waterman, and he hasn't really played this year. So, the key backs, the key forwards, and the small forwards are the players that I usually steer clear from. We've got Cheese in the chat. He's got big, sexy Matt Flynn in his keeper team. I'll ask you this first, Hurls. Should he look to trade him out after his big waffle games? He's had some interest in his draft leagues.
Absolutely. I think he's a trade out if you've got interest because, I mean, if they're gone with BJ so far, why would they all of a sudden switch? They went with Flynn round one. They obviously thought that didn't work. They've now switched to BJ and Archer Reed backing him up. I can't see Flynn coming in unless they just change for the sake of change. So I think if you could get something for Flynn, I'd be definitely keen to do it.
For sure. Your thoughts, Shishka?
Yeah, I don't really see him being a prolific ruck in the AFL anymore. Like, I was considering him starting him in my classic. Like, I still do classic. I was considering starting him at the start of the year, but I ended up going against it. Like, you could have saved $300,000 to $400,000 taking him over your likes of Cherry and DeConing and that, but I just don't think he holds any value into the future, in my opinion. I would be trading him. Like, how old is he too? He's been around for a little bit, hasn't he?
Oh, he's like 300 years old. No, I think he's only like 25.
Yeah, okay. It depends on who you also have as your ruckman as well. Like, I was pretty lucky in our keepers. I got Jordan Sweet, and he's only 24 or 25 as well. So that's in the are you in the Bendigo keepers?
No, I'm not. No,
you're not. Nah. So yeah, I'd probably be. It depends on what you can get because there's so many limited ruckmen in the league. You can't probably be affording to trade them unless you can get one back in, or you take a risk on a younger bloke like your Ned Moyles or whoever's going to take over the next ruckman if any of them are getting old. But yeah, if you've got another ruckman and you've got him sitting on the bench, I'd definitely be using him for trade bait for sure.
It's a really good shout, the Ned Moyle shout, I reckon, with that, because people look at waffle stats and VFL stats and all that, and you've got to remember that these rucks, when they're AFL listed, they're going against some really, good warriors at that lower level, but they're not great ruckmen. They can really dominate them. So Flynn and Moyle, they're great VFL numbers. But when they come into the AFL, they might get a game, and West Coast might change tact again and go back to Flynn at some stage. But he's still only going to be an 80 to 90 guy, right? He's not going to be 110. So I think if you can trade him, go for it.
You're absolutely right. I think you look for currency if you've got someone like Flynn to maybe draft into the future as well. So I picked up a Nick Madden, who I see being the successor behind Kieran Briggs there at GWS. But then you've got your Ned Moyles and these sorts of players too. So while it's important to build your team now for winning, as most of you will be, some will be tanking for draft picks and what have you for sure. But you have to keep one eye to the future. And that's the beauty of keeper leagues as well, is there's a fine balance between being good now versus setting yourself up for the future, Hurls.
Yeah, definitely. And, our keeper league at IFS, we see, Deadly's got a team for 2038. It's
unreal, isn't it?
Priming for then. But, there's a lot of pain in between then and now. So you do have to look at some balance.
Yeah, you actually knocked me off in our keeper league last week by 10 points.
I know. I had a whopping 70 from my captain, McRae, as well.
Yeah. I had an 11 on the field from Harry Mackay that absolutely did me in. Unreal. And Cheese has been in rebuilding mode for 4 years and he's still going strong. How's this for arrogance too, Shishka? Reece Webb, mistakes were made, still 5 and zip. After Patch goes, he picked up Jack Graham off waivers.
Yeah, Jack Graham. Webby traded Jack Graham to me in our keeper league, actually, and he's been a pretty good pickup. He's averaging, he missed a couple of games, I think, at the start of the year, but he's averaging 92 for me.
As a mid-forward as well.
Yeah, so that's why I took it, because obviously I don't know whether he'll have the forward status next year after this year, because I don't know. I don't really watch many West Coast games because they're rubbish, but I thought I'd take that, considering like I picked up. I only started the keeper league this year as well. After the draft, I found all right last year, and I picked up a woeful team and made probably a stupid trade in regards to I traded Ashcroft for Sam Walsh. That was Will, not Levi. But I think Hugh McGluggage is averaging the most in SuperCoach this year, and he's my captain. I've got Tom Powell, who's an up and comer, and those sort of like. So to fit them all in, you got to have some blokes with your DPP statuses, and Jack Graham sort of fit that. He's still only 26 years old as well. So
just on Jack Graham, we started the year with 71 and 64% CBAs. The last 2 weeks that's dropped to 24 and 0. So he might be used a bit differently and maybe keep that forward status going forward if that continues all year.
Yeah, he had 101 fantasy on the weekend.
101 SuperCoach points from 0 CBAs.
Yeah.
So he's had 20 touches, 5 marks, 9 tackles would be why.
They're the gold ones. If they're starting half forward, rolling up, playing stoppage anyway, that's even better because they keep their forward status and they still score.
Shishka, I want to ask you, so there's people that are sitting in waivers at the moment, like a Braden Maynard. He's been pretty woeful to start the year, but if we think back to the start of last year, he went 3 tons in a row and averaged 95 for the first half of the year. Do you look to these sorts of players and go, let's take a punt here because there's definite upside if you can get his shit together, which I've done with Jason Johannesson so far? Or do you just cut your losses and just go, nah, there's better value elsewhere?
I sort of look into like we sort of discussed at the start of the app, where I've changed, I've traded out those players to get Charlie's score. You probably can't look at having, in your draft league, can't look at having 4 to 5 blokes scoring on your bench, because if you do, then if you're willing to, if you're wanting to do a vice captaincy, swapping that, you could be at risk of taking a shit score. So my backs are averaging 117, 98 and 92. And I've got Joel Jeffrey as a back, or I've got Vlosten as my backup, who's playing my flex, who's averaging 80, but he's definitely worth more than an 80 average. I probably wouldn't bother taking the risk, especially I'd look into the fact that Josh Dacos has been moved to halfback as well, which has probably influenced his role a little bit. And they've got Dan Houston too, so that's probably why Houston's obviously out for a few weeks with the suspension. But I'd look at how the roles have changed at the football club and whether that's going to make a difference to his scoring, which is probably one of the reasons why I haven't picked him up this year. He was on my radar last year because he can score pretty well, but I probably haven't really even looked into him this year, in all fairness.
Great little bit of insight there too about what's going on there at Collingwood. I know your better half Hells is a mad Collingwood supporter, but to hear that, from a football playing point of view, not so much a super coach point of view, as to how a footy club is structuring up, how they're playing, how the personnel have changed, which has now adversely affected someone like Maynard's scoring? Like
the other
key
thing
indicators to take into consideration.
Absolutely. The other thing that happened at Collingwood, you had the young bloke went down with the ACL who they were playing back there, Reece McInnes. So he probably has to play a bit more lockdown than he would have played last year. So I think, and like you said, they've got Dacos and Houston to be the attacking halfback. So they don't need him doing that as often.
Yeah. We're scrolling through the waiver wire that we've got here with our league. Isaac Cumming is intriguing, maybe for a week. There's Ryan Burns is up and down. There's not really much going on. Ollie Florent was being talked about a lot during the preseason, but he's shut the bed to a degree.
Yeah, you gave me false information there, Horse.
I gave you shit information, didn't I?
Don't take Matt Roberts in the draft because Ollie Florent's their number one, and fucking Roberts still. Yeah, he's not dominating, but he's still averaging 100, which isn't too bad for a 22-year-old. So,
how do you see? And that was bad on my behalf because of the practice matches that we did watch live. How do you see Riley Bice affecting Matt Roberts now? So, Riley Bice is another young player that's come in, and to be fair, he's played some exceptional footy, and he's a good user of the ball, nice little left footer.
Yeah.
Do you see currency in still holding on to someone like a Matt Roberts? Do you think that he's just being burnt out on the wing where they're like your Blakeys and that's trying to get a little bit too aggressive or a little too selfish and just kick long instead of getting the ball to known ball users? Or how do you see that working there at Sydney?
Has Roberts been moved to a wing, has he?
No, he's been moved. Oh, he hasn't been moved as such. He's still half back. But when you got the likes of Bice, Blakey and co, like he's gone back-to-back 77 and 79-point weeks.
Yeah. I don't know. I've got him in my keeper league, and he's one of sort of my stepping stones in my back line. He's so young, and he has the ability to score because he can find the footy. He sort of reminds me a bit of a Dane Zorko off half back, where he just like is a prolific kicker of the footy, which are the types of players in which I like. So I had Zorko last year for the year that I won the draft, and I thought it was quite a risk because I had him and Treloar and those sort of blokes who ended up dominating the year, but are extremely high risk, like injury prone type players. As you can see, Treloar's already done a calf this year, but those I think he's invaluable because the people who kick the footy and can hit targets a lot more, a lot bigger, prolific scorers than your. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason why I took Fox's trade today, because he's offered me Matt Roberts for Ollie Wines, and if you have a look at all of Ollie Wines' stats in all of his games, he averages about 3 times as many handballs as he does kicks. So like Wines has gone, where are his fantasy stats? 18 handballs, 25 handballs, 16 handballs, 26 handballs, 19 handballs, and then he's got 13 kicks, 8-7, 8-7. And he's only averaging, so he's having 31, 33, 23, 34, and 26 touches, and only averaging 94. Whereas Roberts might only be averaging 24 touches, but he's throwing up 140-point games because he can kick the footy and use it. So although he's gone off the last couple of weeks, I think he's still a pretty valuable pick to have in your side.
Yeah, I like it.
I think it's an interesting combo too, and this is where people who are familiar with classic versus
your
draft.
Voice has just gone a little bit, Hurls.
Well,
just while you're fixing, now you're on mute now, mate. Just while he fixes that up, Shish, could you mind talking us through this, mate? Now, this is a little photo that we've dug up. Your number 20 there in the front, but the grass-eating man himself in the background.
Yeah, just chasing my ass. That's my glory photo, that one. Matt Rao.
Yeah. Matt Rao, yeah. How'd you go this day?
I kicked 2 or 3 that day. I think I might have kicked 2. That was at Punt Road that day. We got beaten by about 3 goals, but him and Noah Anderson absolutely dominated that day. They played, obviously, both Oakley boys played together for Metro. The likes of trying to think of who else was playing for them at the time. A lot of people who played for Metro have sort of gone off the radar a bit. Like you have your Emerson Jeckers, your Josh Honey, your Sam Phillips, all those sort of blokes played for them back then. So they probably haven't had as much like success as what the Vic Country team that year did with like your likes of Kempy's playing not bad for you this year, but he's just done his Achilles. But you have like Caleb Sarong's probably one of your Brownlow favourites at the minute. You had Hayden Young, Sam De Koning was in my team back then. Trying to think of who else there was that was playing on ball. But that day that's me glory photo, that one, Matt Rao chasing the ass, even though he's probably 50 metres away from me. But yeah.
It's just, you don't have to say that, though. It looks like he's struggling to keep up with you there.
I wouldn't say that. Wouldn't say that at all.
Nice little photo anyway. Let's talk about team of players in who you should be targeting with runs that are coming up. So, Hurls, we've identified that Melbourne has a really, really good run in the next 3 or 4 weeks. Yes, they're playing ordinary footy at the moment. And for those that are watching on YouTube, I've just clicked on Jake Lever's name to get an indication as to who they're playing. But they've got Fremantle, Richmond, West Coast, and Hawthorn in their next 4. So there's plenty of scoring potential there for your Melbourne midfielders and what have you. Who are the types of players that you'd be looking to potentially add off waivers or looking to potentially add in a trade?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether these blokes would be waiver applicable because they're probably in teams, but maybe some guys who are like maybe a Bowie or a Salem on the back flanks. Why I'm targeting guys like that for Melbourne is there's the inside mids are going to be good in 2 weeks, but probably not so much against Freo, and then not so much again against Hawthorn and Brisbane. Whereas those back flanker ball distributors, Freo are really good against the defenders. Richmond and West Coast have got no idea about those halfbacks either. And they're probably teams like Hawthorn and Sydney, etc. They're probably not putting time into those guys either. So they're probably the ones I reckon you can get 5 weeks out of instead of just 2. So that maybe someone like that.
Yeah, gotcha. Do you see any currency, big cat, with trading for the likes of a Petraka or an Oliver after their slower starts to the year?
I think it's hard because that's probably the only downside about draft is like I've made like 2 trades already, but I don't think there's many other trades that have been made because, and I'm the same, people value their players too high. So like I got offered a trade earlier, which was I think Callum Wilkie and the midfielder was I forget who it was, but like there was and Steel side bottom for Saligo and Nick Floston, and I just basically put it out there that Saligo had one bad game last week, which dropped his average from 115 down to 103, and Steel side bottom's hitting his absolute ceiling at 104. I don't think he could go any higher than that, and with like he's obviously having a good year, but I think with the trading, people do overvalue their players a bit, so it does make it hard, especially when those like the likes of your Petrakas and Olivers are like out of form scoring wise. Like they're still like Petraka's still having bloody 25 and 2 goals every week, but because Melbourne are getting flogged every week, these scores getting scaled down because the other team's dominating them. I think people are still valuing them quite highly, and it makes it hard to trade because you don't want to be trading someone who's averaging 105, 110 and in form for someone who you're hoping picks up form. So it's a bit of a like a slippery one where you sort of go like I'll try a trade, but it's pretty hard to make trades in your draft where people are expecting something back for what they've got. So
do you think that with Ed Langdon's role change at Melbourne, so he's playing a little bit more midfield now, do you think there's currency there, Shishka, and going, all right, well, here's someone that's potentially performing above their recent history suggests. and going, well, he could be a target given the Richmond, West Coast, Hawthorn. They give up some points to wingers. Like there's a fairly favourable run there for 3 or 4 weeks for Melbourne.
Yeah, again, it's just hard because if he's averaging so well, they're going to, like, I don't know who's actually got Langdon in their team, but like trying to trade for him if he's averaging 100, and I think he's averaging about 105 or so. Yeah, no, he's only averaging 90, 3-round average of 105. So again, he obviously runs all day and he finds the footy, but does he? Like he scored 119, 109, and an 80 and a couple of 70s. Like unless he's finding unless he's having 25 touches, he's not scoring anything more than 80 because he doesn't tackle and that sort of stuff. So it's I don't really think anyone from Melbourne's actually playing that good except for Gawn scoring wise. But like one thing I did try to do a few weeks back was there was a game where Melbourne were playing North Melbourne before North Melbourne absolutely pantsed them. And I brought in Bailey Fritsch hoping that he'd kick a few goals because he normally bullies the shit teams. Yep. And I think he had 2 touches for the game and scored a 24. Maybe kicked 1 goal or 1 point.
Yeah, Archer killed him. Yep.
Yeah, and sometimes it just doesn't work. So I don't know. Sometimes looking into who they're playing can make a difference for some roles, but I think that Train's done well in picking up Jake Bowie. He takes a lot of their kick-ins, and when they're getting dominated, he's going to obviously score well, getting a lot of touches down the back line. Their 3 main mids are obviously their 3 best players, and then Salem. Obviously, I've got him. I've traded for him because you look at trading for teams that have poor form and the ball's going back down there a lot. So other than that, like your Trent Rivers, he's been real poor this year. Like he's only averaging 67, Viney 65.
I was just going to ask that question, Shishka. Those 2 blokes in particular, and you could probably add a couple of others from Melbourne in there, they're in really horrible form, but at some point, maybe they're the ones that do bounce back. I mean, I don't know whether they do or don't, but are they some people that you would, or types of people that you would target where you go, right, here's some players who I think can do 90s, but they're doing 60s. People might want to, move on them because they're underperforming. I'll go now because of the run. Is that easier than the other way around where you've got someone going well and no one wants to move them?
Yeah, I think so. I had Viney last year in my team in the SBL 9, and he was an absolute pain in the ass to have because one week he could drop 140 and the next year was having like 50 because he's just so inefficient. He's just there in and under player. Yep. But I definitely think that like being a non-bowler, he's got value and averaging 65. I think he's definitely better than that. Trent Rivers is hard because, like I said, you got Salem and Bowie down back. He was meant to play on ball this year, but just hasn't really been producing what was expected of him. I thought he would have a big year myself, but like Melbourne only have the 1 player averaging over 100, and that's gone. And then they've got 97, 95, 90, 90, and then the rest are below that. So I don't know if they keep playing poor footy, it makes it hard to make them to make you want them players because they're not going to score well because if teams are flogging them, then their team's going to get scaled down. So
there's already a bit of noise around the Melbourne Footy Club as well, with Brad Green sending out a letter to members earlier in the week saying that the Melbourne Footy Club has Simon Goodwin's full support. And when letters are being sent out like that the end is nigh, don't you, Hurls?
Yeah, they're off field. They're in more pain than on field, which is hard to believe. But no CEO, their president's interim. They can't really make any big decisions because they don't have those roles in place. Like it's really worrying if you're a Melbourne fan. And I think it probably all started when they didn't back Petrarca last year after his injury, and they didn't even check in on him. There's some stuff going on at that club that you'd just be worried about.
Yeah. A few questions that I'll ask you first, Hurls. Will wants to know what the absolute hell has happened to Colby McKercher. We identified it earlier in the season, didn't we, with that forward role, and that it was going to be inconsistent.
Yeah, I think it's a product of trying to make some moves around. They brought Caleb Daniel in as that designated kicker. the theory was that they moved McKercher to that half forward to be more damaging with the ball, but he's a 19, 20-year-old kid who has to really develop into that role. Like it's a lot harder role than it is playing the bit of a seagull role that he was playing the year before. So, does Clarko maybe give him a week or two like he did with Sheasel behind the ball again to get his confidence back? I don't know. I wouldn't be worried long-term in terms of McKercher as a footballer, but that doesn't help someone who's got him in draft or classic, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. What do you think about the fish, Shishka? Zach Fisher.
Zach Fisher.
Played for the first time on the weekend, got a shit ton of the ball, did nothing for North Melbourne, but still scored pretty well Supercoach-wise.
I didn't even know he played on the weekend, 95. Was he playing down back again?
He was.
Yeah. That's, again, North's a hard one as well because, like you say, they could be putting Sheasel back there at any time if that's not working, which I think he's better off half back than on ball, in my opinion. Then you got Caleb Daniel, like he's killing it with, obviously he's such a good ball user. They're trying to take the ball through it. That's why I think they're playing better footy is because they're getting the ball through better ball users' hands. So I don't think Zach Fisher's a bad pick. I think ever since he went down back for North, he's been good, and I think he'd definitely be a keep if I had him myself. But I didn't even know he played on the weekend. I didn't see that any much of that game because it was on while we were playing footy. So I probably can't comment too much on how he went, but I think it said here he had 27 touches.
Yeah, just a seagull, but didn't apply any pressure, mate. So
yeah, no marks, no tackles. So
no.
If he scored 95 with those sort of stats, I'd probably be easily looking at keeping him, especially when you didn't take a mark for the game, and not tackling. Tackling's a pretty big one. That's why I love Tommy Atkins. He's obviously averaging 10 tackles a game, and that's 40 points right there that he's scoring without even touching the footy. So I know he's playing.
Is it worth thinking about Fisher a little differently though? And this is, no one in Classics got him, but draft. Could you maybe try to offload him while he had that 90-something game, thinking that no way Clarko's persisting with him because he's just not defensive and they can't defend for shit. So it might be a short-term flash in the pan, and maybe you could get a trade for him for someone who thinks he's going to be in there longer. I don't know.
Yeah, was he not playing at the start of the year because he just couldn't get a game, or was he injured?
No, I couldn't get a game. Was playing VFL.
Just couldn't get a game.
Yeah, right. I'd definitely be offloading him then. I thought he was injured, and that's why he wasn't playing. But
no.
if he's coming back in, and if that's the reason why he wasn't getting picked, then it probably doesn't look too good, considering he's a defender and has no tackles and anything like that. So, if you look at the AFL app and have a look at his pressure acts for the weekend, I doubt if he's had many tackles, he wouldn't have had.
I reckon people in the crowd were closer to laying the tackle than him.
Yeah. He had 6 pressure acts for the game and played probably 90% game time. So the only reason he probably scored so well is because he used the footy pretty good. But 16 uncontested touches. No marks. I'd probably be looking at offloading him if someone was willing to take him, because he's
for sure.
Yeah, he's obviously, if he's not going to be defending like that, then he's not probably going to be getting the game. Was there anyone that went out for him because of injury or anything like that, or?
I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but Jackson Archer's back either this week or next week, and he'll come straight back in. They're not going to move away from. They're not going to move away from Caleb Daniel being the ball user down there. No, they've got Griffin Logue. They've got Charlie Coomben.
Coomben will be a good player in the future. He'll come through and continue to develop. Luke McDonald's probably past it. He's still playing all right footy, but their backline's probably their weakness, North, in all fairness, because their
midfield's
coming.
Yeah.
Midfield would be up there with, you got your Davies Uniacke, Tom Powers playing good footy. Finn O'Sullivan, I was watching a video.
Sheasel.
Sheasel. I was watching a video on O'Sullivan this morning, how they reckon he was absolutely dominating in the pre-season, but they're just sort of easing him into it. So he'll obviously come on on time, and McKercher as well. He's a very extremely good ball user. So Larky's having a good year. But in regards to Fisher, I'd probably, if he's not been able to get a game in that team, especially when they're sitting, where are they on the ladder, 15th, then you probably wouldn't look at keeping him for too much longer, I wouldn't imagine.
No. Hurls, what would you be trying to do with Sicily? Waiting for the Hawks troops to come back, or are you selling him now that he has that forward role? He's still scoring okay, but what are your thoughts?
I thought he was better as a forward on the weekend, and I don't have stat breakdowns, but I imagine he scored way better when they moved him into the forward half. Now I know that that's not sustainable, and that you prefer the halfback distributor role than the key forward role for sure. But I don't know. Again, it might be one of those ones. Does someone else in your draft league have more faith in him going back than you, and can you orchestrate a trade because of that, or not? And it's hard, and I'm a bit of a newbie in draft, so I don't know how people view their players and whether you would be able to orchestrate that kind of trade or not. But there is a risk, and I imagine role change in any form of fantasy is a reason to try to offload.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, in a keeper league scenario, I'm probably looking to hold him. I think that when they do get their troops back, he'll move back to halfback and be that moving piece. That using halfback, the man that they look to get the ball in their hands of, alongside, is it Carl Amon down there? If it's just for your classic draft setup, you could nearly move him and try to, or if you don't have him, look to buy him low. I think he can bounce back. So there's some good conversation around Sicily and what he can potentially bring to the table this year. Will dropped Manor for Scrimshaw. I'd like to know whether that's keeper or your classic draft, because if it's keeper, probably not. But for your classic draft, Shishka, your opinion?
I just had a look at Scrimshaw. He had 112 in the first game and then must have got injured in the second game that they played. And Manor's only had an 80 and a 40 and has only just played the 2 games as well. So it's probably hard to sort of look into. They're both probably Manor's probably more of a forward mid, whereas Scrimshaw's your defender. It depends on what type of league you'd be playing.
It's classic. Yeah.
Classic. Yeah. I probably wouldn't be looking at having either of them really in my team. I don't know. Sean Manor definitely wouldn't have been in my classic team at any point in this year. And then Scrimshaw, he's a defender, so I don't know. Yeah, don't know how.
He got an injury, didn't he, Scrimshaw?
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, how much is he worth in classic? I don't have him up in classic at the minute, but
I'll be able to find him shortly. While you're looking for that, that's about it for questions that we've got at the moment. If there's one play that you're looking at captaining this week, Hurls, and we don't want to go too much into our captain's corner that we've got within our Patreon, but if there's one play you're looking at captaining, who would it be this week?
For me, I think Zachy Merritt's the man. He's just on fire, playing brilliant. Little lower CBAs than he has in his career. He's down at around the 60 mark rather than the 80 mark. But that impact forward of the ball and ability to just get a really good solid base with tackles and pressure, and then kick the odd goal. I think he's as safe as anyone right now.
Yep, I think you're right.
Goals this year, that's for sure.
Yeah.
If you had to captain one player this week, Shishka, who's it going to be?
Is this just in classic mode or
in classic draft mode? Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've got Merritt as my vice at the minute. It's a bit hard. I went for last week. I think I went for Noah Anderson. He had 113. He's been playing some pretty good footy. Who did Gold Coast play this week? Gold Coast have Richmond, so he could have a day out. Noah Anderson. I like Jack Sinclair. His role off halfback and playing mid as well. There's a few options. It would basically be a toss-up between whoever's playing who. Bailey Smith's playing some good footy and he's going to be having big touches because Tom Atkins does a lot of the grunt work and him and Holmes just sort of the running mids. So, Even your rucks, De Koning's averaging 120. Throw a captaincy on, vice captaincy on him, and run a loophole if he plays well. So there's a few options for sure. But if I was to pick one, I'd probably go Jack Sinclair for this week.
Yeah. Man's been on fire. For me, it's Andrew Brayshaw, sorry. Shout out to Angus, who no longer plays AFL, but Mr. Brayshaw, he has just been on fire of late. We'll see here with his stats capped with a 155 last week. If I can make this work. He's gone 101, 106, 131, 135, 155. That natural progression of getting more SuperCoach points each game isn't going to continue. But against a Melbourne team who has been struggling a little bit of late, him alongside Sarong, I think you can play it safe for 120 between the pair this week. Jono's just asking, thoughts on Dunkley into Hewitt as some keeper draft captains this week? Georgie Hewitt, he's been low-key really nice this year, Hurls.
He has. He's reinvented himself. He was, the player of 2022, disappeared for a couple of years, and now he's back. Those who have got him will be loving it. And they've still got a good run coming up, the Blues, so that's not a bad shout.
Yeah. As we've just been notified that Willie Rioli is back at Port Adelaide after his 1 or 2 day leave period. So good to see him back playing footy. Have you got anything else you'd like to add before we knock off Shishka?
No, I think we've sort of covered a bit here and there. If there's any questions in regards to draft stuff, I don't know whether this will be ongoing with the draft potty.
It will be weekly.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's a bit different to your normal SuperCoach, and it's something that you can sort of explore a bit more rather than your classic where, like I said, you have 10 to 15 of the same players and you're relying on those 8 guys to get you over the line. But I'm pretty much all good for this week. Hopefully I can get on the board against your horse. Maybe if you could tank for a week, I'll buy a slab. Something like that.
Oh, that'd be nice. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Box at my front doorstep. Although I don't know whether I want to risk, for those of you that saw it on social media, this is the league where we had our mate Chuka on the roundabout, dressed up, dancing for cars that were tooting going past him. So I'm not sure whether I want to subject myself to have to do that. But have we worked out our punishment for this year yet?
Nah, I suggested that we should do you have to go to Macca's and eat 150 nuggets, and then however many you don't eat per nugget's $10 that you have to donate to next year's draft day. But I don't think that got approved. So
you'd be shitting nuggets for weeks.
Well, at the minute I'm sitting 15th, and I've only got 2 people ahead of me that are on 1 win. So I've got a bit of work to do, and I've got you this week, and then I've got. I think I've got a tough opponent the week after. So I need Treloar and Caldwell to be back as soon as possible, preferably.
Yeah. Well, Caldwell's back on the track, so hopefully he is back next week.
Yeah.
Hurls, thanks for joining us for this draft episode. It's something that we'll continue to do moving forward. But when we're talking SuperCoach, it's great, isn't it? Like whether it's classic, whether it's draft, whether it's keeper, it's something that brings the community together with a common, I guess, goal in mind or a common purpose.
Yeah, I've learned a bit, so I've loved that. Just a chance to think about draft differently. It certainly is one of the formats that you need to have active participants. So, if you're in a league, if you're in our keeper league, or if you're in our classic league, I think the more activity there is, and in our keeper league, we've got that spreadsheet which is brilliant. Get in there and offer up some trades. It just makes it a bit more interesting. So I love it.
Yeah, for sure. Jono, yes, I'm in the Twitter chat with yourself and DR and the boys. Send it to me, mate, and I'll send it through to the group for opinions for you. So I will sort that for you. For today, Hurls, we're going to be back at 8:00 tonight where we talk through our round 6 preview. So you're not going to want to miss that. But the Big Cat, thanks for joining us, mate. Look forward to joining you or you joining us each week for this SuperCoach Draft episode.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me, gentlemen.
Good lad. Good luck with the foot recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the horse. The Big Cat's below me. Hurls has carried us through. and we'll see you tonight for our live. We'll catch you then. Peace.
So, yeah.